This is the Dallas Morning News.
Eat, Drink, DFW from the Dallas Morning News is made possible by Central Market.
Hello, and welcome to Eat, Drink, DFW, the podcast from the Dallas Morning News food team. Each week, we take a look at food and drink trends in North Texas, talk about restaurants in Dallas-Fort Worth, learn some new recipes, and sometimes even get tips from you, our listeners. I'm Anna Butler, the food editor at the Dallas Morning News. This week, we're catching you up on all the latest openings and food news in town. We'll also discuss a steak trend that might sound tempting, but also might turn your stomach. That's all coming up right after this.
Central Market is really into food, like fish flown in so fresh it still has jet lag into food. Our sourdough starter has been around since grunge was a thing into food. We're talking more prime cuts than a greatest hits album into food. Central Market is really into food. If you are too, then we're the HQ for you, whether you're a make every recipe in the cookbook foodie or a my favorite recipe is reheat type who just digs the delectable. No place makes every day more delicious like Central Market. Really into food. Shop now at centralmarket.com.
For the latest food and restaurant news in Dallas-Fort Worth, visit dallasnews.com/food. Also, we'd love to hear from you, so email us at eatdrink@dallasnews.com. Today, I'm joined by Sarah Blaskovich and Claire Bowler. Imelda Garcia is on vacation. Now that Michelin season is over, we have got to catch up on some of the latest restaurant news. Sarah, do you want to kick us off?
Yes, we're going to start with sports. You know, this isn't a sports podcast, as you guys know, but sports can be social. And we have a sport coming to town that I think is going to take the place of pickleball. Pause for effect. Pickleball clubs are everywhere right now. And what you do there, in addition to playing the sport, is you eat and you drink and you hang out. And there's a fast growing sport in the United States called Padel that a lot of experts who I think know what they're talking about think is the new pickleball. Have you guys played Padel before?
I have not. I played it growing up during PE.
Oh, as a kid?
Yeah, for sure. Along with like croquet and badminton.
I like your fancy school. I think we played Foursquare.
I have to ask a question. How is this different than pickleball?
Okay, so Padel is a doubles sport played on a tennis court that's a little bit smaller. And they say it is part tennis, squash, and pickleball. But the idea with Padel, like pickleball, is that you don't really have to be great at the sport in order to play. The other very distinguishing factor of this sport is that it has glass walls all the way around, and you can play off the walls. So a tennis pro explained to me that, like, if you learn to play tennis, you spend a lot of time chasing balls. Well, if you play Padel, you can play off the walls, and so the ball is in motion a lot more, which makes for a more fun and perhaps speedier game.
Got it. Okay.
And while we're listening, Padel is spelled Padel, and some people in different parts of the U.S. call it Padel. But in Texas, most of the people I'm talking to are calling it Padel. But this is the same sport. The reason we're talking about this is because a place called Padel House is going to open in the Dallas Design District. It started in New York City and has expanded to many cities across the U.S., Dallas among them. And the thought here is that on your lunch break or for a breakfast meeting or on Saturday with friends, you can go and play a game. You can shower in their locker rooms before or after if you want, and you can grab a bite to eat or even a cocktail before and after these games. Also noteworthy, Padel is not a new sport. It's just not a sport we don't have a lot of in Dallas. It is very popular in Mexico and in Spain, and we will have our eyes out to see what happens next with Padel and DFW. But if you're me, I don't really need to play the sport, but I'll absolutely grab a cocktail and watch my friends do it.
Claire, you have an update on a restaurant that we first heard about maybe like 2 years ago.
Yeah, Sarah, you may or may not remember because you cover a lot. There's a story that you wrote, I think about 2 years ago, about a second restaurant coming from the owner of Smoky Rose called Cantina La Rosa.
I remember that.
You remember? Okay. So this is a Tex-Mex concept that was supposed to open sometime last year, but the space that it was going to go into on Maple Avenue is tied up in litigation. So David Cash, who owns Smoky Rose and is opening this new restaurant, found a new space that just happens to be the old Fernando's location on Midway next to the Central Market.
A very good location for anyone living around there. We've regularly heard complaints from people who say, I love living in this part of Dallas, but there's not a ton to eat. So now you're saying it's sad that Fernando's is gone, but those neighbors are getting more to eat there. And it's Tex-Mex again.
Yep, it is. So this is going in right near where Claremont went in not that long ago. But unlike Claremont, this restaurant will have lunch, which is something that is actually pretty scarce in that neighborhood. So it's expected to open around mid-February, and it will have a menu of Tex-Mex classics. But the owner said that they're going for a little bit of a lighter touch than what you usually see at Tex-Mex restaurants.
Sounds good. I'd try it.
Speaking of neighborhood spots, Sarah, you reported on something that is in the place of a place that you visited growing up.
Yes. So I'm a kid who grew up in Plano. And when I was a little girl, I used to tap dance inside the Plano Market Square Mall at Christmas time. And it was kind of like an aging antique mall that also for years of my childhood had a garden ridge in it, which we know today as At Home, the home furnishings store. It's east of 75, and a couple of years ago, this whole building was torn down and turned into a totally different concept. It is a mixed-use development, and there are trails and apartments and offices. And really close to where I used to tap dance, there is now a family-friendly ice house. It's called Assembly Ice House, and they say they have 20 TVs and a kid-friendly menu and plenty of stuff for adults to drink too. So the story behind that is that the owner and his wife have 4 kids, and they said it's hard to find a place for the whole family to go and eat where the adults can still have fun. And so that's what Assembly Ice House is. And given how many families live nearby, and my family used to, I think it's worth a drive up there, or anybody near Plano, go check it out.
I think on the adult Chuck E. Cheese vibes, I've got one. So the Devonshire Club over on West Lovers Lane near the tollway is taking over the former Nikki Greek Bistro and Lounge. And I really loved Nikki. I thought the food was great. However, the owner said, hey, we listened to our patrons and they want something else in this spot. And it's going to be a lounge with daily happy hour. That being said, they are not open on Mondays. And it's going to have great food. And then they're going to have shuffleboard and a ton of TVs. So very similar to Assembly Ice House. That being said, to me, it just sounds like they're like, what if we opened another Inwood Tavern that felt a little cleaner and maybe didn't have smoking?
Yes. Also, I'm wondering about the economics of a business like that, Anna. You know, we're talking a lot about how expensive food is right now, and the margins on alcohol are much better. And if there is an appetite in the neighborhood for people to come and drink someplace, maybe that's the play.
They're going to be open super late too. And to me, I just think about it as a lot of millennials in the Devonshire area and the Park Cities looking for a place that's a little bit closer than maybe Uptown or Knox Henderson or Lower Greenville. It's also, I don't think the parking's great there. So this is probably
not great.
Fantastic shift.
Well, they were doing something interesting at Nikki Greek. It was kind of half lounge, half restaurant. It's quite a large space, which you wouldn't really know from the outside. And so my guess would be too that this might be just a smarter way to use that real estate than how they had it broken up before and kind of go all in on the lounge space, which seemed to be their most popular part of their business.
They used to have like a really clubby brunch on the weekends, and maybe they were like, keep doing that.
Speaking of experiences inside of food and beverage spaces, there's something on my mind called Le Petit Chef. And this is opening inside Galleria Dallas in the Westin Hotel. It is an immersive dinner experience that's part art, part actual dinner. Anna actually found this first, and you know Le Petit Chef because it started in Europe and it's expanded across Europe and come to the United States. I didn't know about Le Petit Chef until I looked it up, and the best way to get a visual is to look on YouTube because Le Petit Chef's lunch or dinner is truly like a sensory experience that feels very video worthy. And it opens November 15th. In Galleria Dallas, I think with the idea that families over the holidays or anytime after that want to take their kids or want to do an adult thing where you sit down and your table literally comes to life because projectors above you are putting food on your plate even before there's real food there. And as the story goes, and I've only watched the videos, I haven't experienced it yet, but Le Petit Chef is a tiny chef who comes to your table and like sits on your table and tells you about all 5 courses before they happen. And like a movie, this whole thing has seating. So everybody in the room is on the same course at the same time.
Unlike Ratatouille, the Le Petit Chef is not a rat.
No, he's a cute little man with, I think, like the chef's hat
Like
on.
a cartoon? I'm so confused.
Oh,
It is a cartoon.
Okay. And so this little chef is projected onto your table
yes.
and walks you through the menu. Where are the speakers?
I don't know.
Is this piped through the whole restaurant?
Surreal sound?
I don't know the answer to that, but I think there's 40 seats.
Okay.
So, not a huge place. And then each table has like their own set of projectors that they had to install in order to make this experience on top of your table sort of come to life.
This is also not cheap at all. So if you're going to get the full tasting menu for adults, it's like triple digits. What's the price, Sarah?
It's $79 for kids and $189 for adults. And there is a vegetarian option that costs $159 per person.
So the first thing I said to you, Sarah, when we were philosophizing about why this restaurant, I said World Cup, because I'm looking at this and this is a very popular concept in other parts of the world. There's private equity backing for it now that's rolling it out across the globe. And we don't know what teams are going to be here for the World Cup next year, but they would be familiar with this concept.
That's a really good point. I think there's also this idea that malls are being repurposed for experiences in part, in addition to all the retail spaces. And so if you look at the Galleria, there's also the ice skating rink, really popular around the holidays, really popular with people coming in from out of town and looking to do something with their kids. And then in early December, they get Netflix House, which is a special immersive Netflix experience. So Le Petit Chef, at least from the Galleria's point of view, I think is seen as more stuff for people of all ages to do indoors at this, 3-story mall?
I have a funny anecdote about Netflix House. So you know how LinkedIn sometimes will be like, hey, you should look at this job.
Yes.
And you don't have to be looking for a job. They somehow think journalism is really close to being a silent actor, actress for Netflix House. And they're trying to actively cast for things. And they're like, what if you were a petite 5'2" female who could play this character from what's that show where everyone's gonna die in it and it's a contest and Squid Games.
So they want you for Squid Game.
They want me for Squid Game.
They want you specifically.
Which I am 5'8". The podcast does not reveal that, but I am not 5'2". And not a child that could be cast as an 18-year-old.
Funny for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Okay, really quick back to Le Petit Chef. It sounds like what you're telling me is that this is the 2025 version of a mall rainforest cafe.
Ooh, that does not seem right to me. It seems like the Van Gogh exhibit of a couple of years ago in 2025 and with dinner.
Is it designed that you could do it more than once and be just as entertained as the first time around?
I don't think you would do this one more than once, but they have more than one experience, so they could change it.
Okay.
I think right now they offer this one experience, but if you look at their website globally, different cities have a different one. It's an art exhibit, so I think it's just a matter of getting the right movie, so to speak, for the next experience. Le Petit Chef was created by 2 artists who had this first in their home. And you know how light projection became a really immersive form of art. And so these artists were doing this in Europe and they invited some friends over and it became a dinner experience. And then it blossomed into
a tiny man on your plate.
Yes.
Speaking of restaurants with changing experiences, Live Moss Cafe. Do you know what it is?
I don't love the name, but tell us more, Anna.
Taco Bell decided to open its own version of Cosmics, basically. So it's a drink-centric, beverage-forward idea, except that they're opening them within Taco Bells. So instead of doing them one-off, like Cosmics was doing, they're like, hey, we already have real estate that works for Taco Bell, but we're probably trying to activate it during the day. And they basically are like, Gen Z loves a little sweet treat and a little bev.
Yeah.
And so we're going to give them those. So they have basically a churro flavored equivalent of a Frappuccino and agua fresca inspired drinks.
The whole drinks craze has been so funny to me because I was just taught not to drink your calories unless it was alcohol. And so the idea that someone's going to drink a bucket of liquid churro by choice and consume those God knows how many hundreds of calories is so outside of my understanding of what we are supposed to put in our bodies.
But you look at the data for how people are drinking these days and it's not alcohol. And so I guess it's beverages that kind of flirt with being a dessert.
You got to wonder if Live Moss Cafe is also going to be a competitor of Dutch Brothers and all these others, these coffee places. And Taco Bell said, even though it didn't work for McDonald's and Cosmics, we're going to try it our way. Now, the one that I know is open in Dallas, Anna, is on East Mockingbird Lane, right?
Yeah, it's going to be the first one to open. And then there are 2 others slated for North Texas. Houston comes after this. opened first in California, and then they were like, Texas is our next stomping grounds. It all makes sense because Yum Brands has a lot of a presence in Plano. Yum owns Taco Bell. Taco Bell is still based in California, though. So there is kind of a tie-in to me. That being said, I love that they were like, let's see what these SMU kids will do with the bevs, because I don't know if you've driven by that Taco Bell late at night, the one at McMillan and Mockingbird. That is like a bump-in Taco Bell. And like you've got one person working it by themselves that's like fighting for their lives, and then drunk college kids.
Well, I know this Taco Bell well, and I don't mind adding that I think Taco Bell is a good fast food brand. I think if you need something quick, it is so much better than most of the other options. And that Taco Bell specifically, Anna, is my Taco Bell. Sometimes when you need a bean burrito with no onions because you need a little protein and you're quickly going someplace else, you could stop at that Taco Bell. Or maybe I could stop at that Taco Bell, except that it was closed for I'm not sure how long, at least a month. And so I didn't realize just how interested I was in that Taco Bell until you couldn't go anymore. And then like every time I drove by, I was like, what are we doing to my Taco Bell? And as it turns out, we're adding drinks that I'm not going to order.
Finally, let's end with Chili's on our news updates.
All right, we already knew that the 2 skillet quesos on Chili's menu were going away in early October to be replaced with a vegetarian Southwest queso. After that happened, the internet exploded. I didn't personally love the choice either because their skillet beef queso has been around since 1990. I was alive in that year, and I grew up on Chili's. I say that out loud because there's people listening who weren't alive in that year. And 35 years with one menu item is a long time. Chili's argued that this queso wasn't good enough and could have been made with better ingredients. Well, millennials, I think, thought otherwise. And so they clapped back on social media, and Chili's said, we hear you and we're sad that you're mad at us, and we're bringing back the original skillet beef queso. So the big news, guys, is that Chili's is going to serve again that 35-year-old dish that apparently is so beloved by a very specific age range of people that includes me.
It's funny to me that they're bringing back something that they publicly were like, this isn't very good.
Yeah.
The test market was in Atlanta for that, and I think that's crazy. But maybe, though, Atlanta knows something that we don't. And the reason I say this is we have the Michelin results once again for Atlanta and now the whole South. And Atlanta has so many more Michelin accolades than we do. So maybe Atlantans really know their queso.
I think Dallas folks know their queso pretty well, too. I mean, this is a sort of a way of life in Dallas. And clearly messing with the Chili's queso wasn't the PR move that Chili's should have made. And so they reversed their decision very surprisingly.
Bring back the chicken crispers.
Bring back the chicken crispers. There are plenty of people who are like, fine with the queso, but you still haven't fixed the other big problem.
We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're getting into controversial territory about steaks.
Central Market is really into food. Like when we say cheese, it's in 12 languages into food. Butchers, bakers, and sushi roll makers into food. We're talking so obsessive about quality you can shop blindfolded into food. Central Market is really into food. If you are too, then let us turn your shopping list into a treasure map. Get inspired, get adventurous, or just get a chef-made dinner when you've got more taste buds than time. No place makes every meal more amazing like Central Market. Really into food. Shop now at centralmarket.com.
Welcome back. In just a minute, we're delving into Pittsburgh-style steaks. But first, did you know leaving a good review for our podcast helps other people find it? We'd love it if you left us 5 stars.
5 stars.
Sarah, I need you to break it down for us. What is Pittsburgh-style steak? And why are we even talking about it?
Sure, on the Dallas podcast, no less. Pittsburgh style steak is new to me. It comes from a reader, and I think this is worth unpacking. There's a guy named Ross who was at a talk I gave recently. He asked a great question during the talk, and then afterwards, he sent me a follow-up email with a different question. And here is Ross. Quote, I was going to ask if you knew what it meant to cook a steak Pittsburgh style. Since you are so busy and to save you some time, I looked it up on AI. For your convenience, I printed the answer at the bottom to read only if you're interested. Now, my question to you is, do you know if this is commonly used? And if I requested Pittsburgh style, would most restaurants that serve steak understand it? So Ross is a most thoughtful emailer, and the definition of Pittsburgh-style steak, according to AI, I'm going to put that in big, bold letters here, is searing the outside at a very high temperature to create a charred crust while keeping the inside rare or medium rare. It's also known as black and blue or Pittsburgh rare. Now that I explained this cooking method, we do this all the time at my house, and we see it at plenty of restaurants. I just haven't heard it called Pittsburgh-style steak. How about y'all?
I think black and blue is a lot more common. If you were to order black and blue at a restaurant, they probably would know that more than Pittsburgh style. That being said, my little sister's boyfriend loves a Pittsburgh style steak and will order one at a restaurant. Or if we're grilling steaks, he says, "What about Pittsburgh style?"
What do restaurateurs say when he orders a Pittsburgh style steak? Is this understood and received?
I've never been there with him when he's done it.
Okay. No.
Yeah.
I've never heard of Pittsburgh style, but I've heard of black and blue plenty of times for steaks and burgers. It would be interesting to put this to the test. If you went to the handful of top steakhouses in Dallas and asked for Pittsburgh style, if that would need clarification or not. My guess would be it probably wouldn't. I mean, the people who work at steakhouses here in this town certainly know their stuff. But I also wonder how many people order steak that way, who would want something really blackened on the outside and rare on the inside.
That's how I like a steak. That being said, I like it a little past black and blue. So black and blue really means that red hasn't even happened yet because it's almost still blue because it's raw in the middle. That's where that name comes from. So I do take like a little umbrage where they're like Pittsburgh style, like could be medium rare. I mean, that thing's going to get real charred on the outside if you're doing it that way. So I find that interesting with the AI definition, but it's typically very charred on the outside, rare in the middle has been my experience of it. And I do like a steak that way. I think you're getting all kinds of flavor. I like texture too.
Yeah, I mean, the charred outside gives you like a tiny bit of, like what a smoked brisket will give you with that pepper bark on the outside where you get some of that chew. And I think it sounds delicious. I would also eat it like this. Claire, I love you setting the scene of sitting in a top 5 steakhouse and ordering Pittsburgh style. And here's what I want to do. I want to sit down at, call it Nick and Sam's, and ask a chef and a server like for all the glossary of terms for the funny ways people order steak. Because I think in addition to Pittsburgh style, there have to be all these other quirky things that people say that a server, instead of going like, "Sir, what in the world are you talking about?" That the server says right away, "We would love to do it that way." Because at Nick and Sam specifically, one of the things that is a core philosophy there is they don't say no. Do you want a Dr. Pepper and we don't have any Dr. Pepper? Somebody is running to 7-Eleven to buy a Dr. Pepper and it will be in your glass in a couple of minutes. So do you want a Pittsburgh style steak? I would love to get that for you. And then they probably turn around and go, "If I don't know it, I'm going to Google it."
And they'll get the same AI answer that you did.
I didn't read all of it. The AI answer actually has like 6 more bullet points. So if anybody's really into this, you can look it up. But now I want to know from everyone listening, what is the weird way that you order a piece of meat? What's sort of your glossary of terms that we may have not heard of? Because now I need a list. So email us at eatdrink@dallasnews.com and tell us what you say when a server wants to know how you want your steak.
And that's all the time we have for today, and we don't want you to miss an episode. Make sure you're following Eat Drink DFW wherever you find podcasts. Special thanks to our producer, Julie Fisk. For the news, I'm Anna Butler. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Eat Drink DFW from the Dallas Morning News is made possible by Central Market.